They don't want what we know out there.
How a person can go from really almost nothing to becoming a millionaire by owning rental properties.
He would always buy these flip houses, and I just remember thinking, this guy is crazy. Why would he buy that house?
In the past decade, there's been a huge surge in the peer-to-peer short-term rental market.
Become an insider. So you have to know the rules before you get the game.
Every second counts. So make every second count.
Welcome to the Real Estate Jam. Whether you're just beginning or the best of the best, we're glad you're here. We will share successes, failures, and strategies for the action-taking real estate investor. And now to your hosts, JD and Melissa.
Hi guys, welcome to the Real Estate Jam podcast. I'm JD, and my wonderful co-host is out making tons of money on appointments right now, so I'm flying solo, but that's okay because I have been graced with one of my personal mentors. I'd even go as far as considering him a friend. This is a guy who's taught me a ton about real estate investing and at a deeper level than I had known previously, even after spending $50,000 or $60,000 in other masterminds. The way that this dude can break down complex topics into stuff that I can understand has literally changed the way that we've done our business. I am super excited to introduce to you guys the man with the plan, CEO of REISift, Tyler Austin. Tyler, thanks for coming on the show today, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Super happy and pleased to be here. Thanks for the invite. I'm ready to jam out on the Real Estate Jam podcast, man.
Awesome. Well, I know that there's going to be some of our listeners who probably don't know who you are or don't know where you came from or any of that stuff. So if we could just briefly catch them up to speed. Now, if they've been listening to our podcast for any amount of time, I'm sure they've heard me talk about your products, maybe not you specifically, but I would love, just introduce yourself to our audience and let them know why they might want to listen to you.
Yeah. So you already got my name, Tyler Austin. I'm a husband, dad of two beautiful children, Abram and Tessa, a 2-year-old and an 8-year-old. And I've been doing real estate since really 2017. I was a government guy before that, cybersecurity engineer, hacking, basically I was on a Google Red team. And blue teams, that's what I did. I figured out how can I make things break without people knowing and all that good stuff. And it was really fun. But the government doesn't pay very well. I was getting paid when I first started. As an airman, I was getting paid, probably like $200 a month or something. I don't know. Joined the Air Force when I was in 2010. And I had, I think I did like 8.5 years in and then switched over to a normal government guy. Where I then did some cyber stuff. And anyway, so in that process, I learned a lot about processes and systems and how to approach attacking things, right? Like from if you think about, if you're going to go plan a war, if you're going to go on an engagement overseas, if you're a pew-pewer, I wasn't a pew-pewer. My weapon was my keyboard, right? And so there's a lot of planning that goes into that, like what am I going to do? What code am I going to use? You got to be really quick on your feet because if you run across a roadblock, you got to kind of know like, okay, I'm going to try this really fast. And it's not really fast. It's like, I might have to type 100 characters or something, so there's a lot of just things that have to happen. And I mention all that because when I started real estate, what I ended up finding out is that everybody uses data, but nobody knows how to use it, right? It's they look at it as a very transactional relationship with their data. I buy it, I market to it, and I get conversions. And they don't practice what data tells us, right? They don't use data like a marketer. We use data in real estate as a sales function. And that's because we only look at the leads in real estate. We never look at the prospects and the phone numbers and the amount of times we've marketed to somebody that people were not reaching, all these different things. And so when I was getting started, I just kind of used my own little nerdisms to create a quick script to do some efficient things in my business after suffering for a little while. And after I released that, ecosystem into my business, if you will, I started using that process. We went from doing like nothing and just me spending money to doing, 300,000 nearly in that first quarter. And I was like, holy crap, I think I've unlocked something, and that's powerful here. And so then I quit my government job, started doing real estate full time, and founded REISift like 3 months later.
Yeah, that's huge. One, I feel personally grateful that the government didn't pay you enough money to keep you over there.
Yeah.
I remember the first time that I was at a high level mastermind, I was trying to figure out some of these things that you're mentioning. And I said, well, how are you guys tracking your data? And that was the question I asked. I think it was the first time I ever spoke up in the mastermind, and nobody had an answer. And not only did they not have an answer for me, they also didn't understand the relevance of tracking not just the people you get a hold of, but the people you don't get a hold of. Now, I was looking at it from the direct mail standpoint, like, hey, what are you doing with your return mail? What are you doing to the people who don't respond, but you never get that letter back? And really what people were doing was buying lists, marketing to those lists however they were, and then the next month going out and buying another list, regardless of if half of those names and addresses and numbers were on the list they paid for last month. And I didn't understand, and I was inexperienced enough that I didn't know how to ask the right questions. And I'm not sure, Tyler, when did you found REISift? What year was that?
2019.
Yeah. So this was 2018 when I'm asking these questions. And so maybe that's why nobody had heard of you at that time. And then shortly after that, I couldn't get away from people talking about REISift. So it just really kind of exploded pretty quick once people realized the value of tracking your data. I'm hoping, Tyler, that you can maybe share with our audience like your data tracking theory and why it's important.
Yeah. So I'm going to try to keep things at a relatively high level so I don't bore people's brains out. But I'll start with this. I think that, like anything, the more that we understand, the more that we can improve, right? And where a lot of people mess up with a lot of things in their life is that they try to go all in on something too quickly, which ultimately makes them fail. A good example of this is anytime somebody goes to work out, right? Working out and losing weight isn't difficult, right? But it's also not very easy, right? It's one of them things where you have to do a lot of different things to have success long term. And when people get started doing the philosophies that I talk about, at SIFT and just using our tool to its highest capacity, what they do is they think about everything, right? And instead of just focusing on the first thing that you can do to yield a result and then building habits that last you a lifetime, or in this case, last your business a lifetime. Okay. So it's kind of like not having sugar, right? Is something that like could be a very good step for someone who's trying to work out, right? I just get rid of sugar and then I add that, and now it's something like at a certain point, you just don't use it no more. Not re-skip trains on the same records multiple times. Once you do it once and you get the process in your business, like, oh, cool, I'm never doing it again. I've just automatically saved an unknown amount of time, a compounded effect, really, an unknown number, depending on the volume that you're skip tracing in revenue every year, right? And so, So I start off with that. With deep understanding comes the capacity to manipulate. Okay, and manipulation. When I say that, it means that if I understand something from a core fundamental standpoint, I can look at it from another angle, which allows me to unlock a level of my business that otherwise I would have never achieved if I hadn't had a deep understanding. And where does this deep understanding usually exist in most companies? It exists in the owner of the company hiring somebody that does have a deep understanding, right? Like Apple hiring an engineer, electrical engineer, right? Like the founder of Apple, in this case, he did have a lot of technical, know-how. However, most businesses don't, right? Most businesses, you have founders, non-technical founders that build like software companies that don't understand how to build code at all. So you hire somebody who has a deep understanding of that in order to build the thing that you need built. The luxury that you do not have as a real estate company in most cases is you don't have the funds initially starting out to back you hiring somebody for $80,000 or $125,000 a year to have the mindset to do those things. And even if you did, that person doesn't have it in real estate specifically, right? So they're not going to be able to take the marketing efforts that they learned from, some other random, brick and mortar company and adopt it into your real estate company, because it's just not going to work, right? And so this is where SIFT comes in, right? SIFT comes in because we are a community of individuals who take our business, sales, and marketing seriously. We want to have a deep understanding because we want to be able to manipulate the data to give better outcomes than everybody else. We want that competitive advantage over anybody else in the market. And so with that being said, as long as you're that person, then you're going to enjoy what I have to say. If you're not that person and you're expecting quick results and all that other kind of stuff, then you're going to probably think that what I'm about to say isn't for you. However, I will argue to say that it is for you if you only use it to enhance your quick theory, right? Because that's possible as well. All right. So what is my generalized philosophy at a high level? It is the intake of data, be it from what I call a first to market strategy, which is where I'm getting the data at the highest frequency possible. If it's from the county, usually it's like next day, right? From the county. Boom, I'm getting the stuff from yesterday, today. If I don't have the capacity to do that in my business and I can only use like something like PropStream or whatever else, then it's, hey, I'm first to market from PropStream. Every day I'm filtering by the same filter on PropStream and I'm pulling it in. Whereas most people are pulling like once a month or quarterly. So first to market is one of my strategies that nobody else really does, that I believe is one of the most important things for a business today to do, right? You can also do it in a bulk perspective where you buy data, on a monthly basis in bulk. And I'm going to explain very briefly why most businesses teach doing that, or most, coaches teach to do that. And it has to deal with something about correct numbers. And I'll explain that in a minute. But after you pull this data into your business, I have my next kind of layer to this, and that's deciding on your marketing strategy. Most people are going to do some form of calling. And so you're going to enter into what I would call a sequential marketing strategy. And this is essentially where what sequential means is doing something in an ordered process. And so I'm going to cold call these people, and then I'm going to text message these people, and then I'm going to send direct mail to these people, right? For example, what most companies do is they may do all of those things, but they may do all of them at once, or they may do all of them back to back in a sequential way, not knowing that it's a sequential marketing strategy. But what they don't do is they don't track the results of everything. And so anything that was in cold calling just goes to SMS, except for the leads. Usually they pull out the leads, but they don't pull out all the wrong numbers. They don't pull out all the not interested. They don't pull out all of the other 97% of market response, which is a true number. So if you market out there, only 3 to 5% of the marketing you do is going to yield correct numbers of homeowners. 50% is going to be wrong numbers. 35 to 50% is going to be dead numbers. It really depends on your skip tracing, right? And so we want you to track all that response, all that marketing effort, so that when I do move it to the next marketing strategy, right, I am not re-hitting and spending marketing dollars talking to the wrong number that I talked to yesterday. You see, there's a misconception in the real estate space that that you are marketing for leads. It's not true. You're marketing for wrong numbers. The byproduct of that is that you get leads, right? Because you spend, if you spend $42 a day on a VA, $35 of it is speaking to the wrong person, right? And so you tell me which one you paid to get, clearly it's wrong numbers, right? And so out of those correct numbers that you do gather, 93% of those on average are going to be not interested, right? And most people don't even track those, right? And so what my philosophy is in taking data, marketing to it in a sequential pattern, tracking the results, and then managing those leads at the highest efficiency. If you're going to spend all this money, you're going to spend 93%, 97% of your dollars, your marketing dollars, to generate a lead, then you should probably spend most of your efforts nurturing those, more so than what you did to generate. It's a lot easier to manage leads than it is to generate leads, right? But a lot of people, they throw those leads right away into a process that's more hands off than the marketing was to generate the lead itself. And that is a big failure. It's really silly to me to say, hey, I finally got the lead. Thank goodness. I finally got the correct homeowner. And now I'm going to throw it to a process that's more hands off than it took me to actually generate it. So you're kind of just throwing dollars away. And so I like to make sure people are doing that lead management process really well. And I like to make sure people are actually tracking the offers that they make on records. A lot of people, if they mention an offer, like a soft offer, they don't track that. And so there's a full process between that, marketing side and the lead management side. And the last thing that I'll say on that whole flow, that whole process was, when it comes to first to market and sequential marketing, there's two different sides of this. And I mentioned to you a webinar before we came on this. I talk about this in that webinar, right? So the difference between bulk sequential, niche sequential, and stuff like that. But so basically, you have bulk marketing and you have niche marketing, but you also have bulk data and you have niche data. Mm-hmm. I believe that if you're going to do niche data, that you should do niche marketing, okay? Mm-hmm. Niche sequential marketing. And what that means is that you're intaking that data daily, but you're sending direct mail right away. So you upload it, send direct mail right away, and then start calling. And then, if they don't answer the phone, send the text message, and then you leave a voicemail if you get a voicemail. And so basically the difference between bulk marketing and niche marketing is that in bulk marketing, you're using usually a separate tool to do that marketing effort. You're marketing to it all at once, and then you're moving it to a different tool and doing it all again, right? And so you're not calling and then texting. You're not calling and leaving a voicemail. But in niche sequential marketing, you're treating it as if you're trying to call, your spouse that isn't answering the phone. You call them, they don't answer. You leave a voicemail, you call them back again, and then you leave a voicemail. You're going to look them up to try to figure out where they're located. Like, you're going to do pretty much everything you can to try to figure out where's your spouse. They're not answering the phone. And so niche marketing is a little bit different, but because of the fact that you're only intaking, 5 or 6 or 10, prospects a day, it becomes very manageable to do. But the big thing is making sure you get that mail out right away. And then you're also then calling them. And then we'll get in this later, I'm sure. But if for whatever reason, every number is wrong or dead on that homeowner, right, from skip tracing, like that becomes a money hole that in a positive way, not a negative, where what we know is that for every one of those that happens, 2.5% of those, if you did the work to refine them, are going to convert to a deal. And usually that assignment fee is going to be nearly double whatever your typical assignment fee is going to be.
Yeah, that's huge.
So a lot of information there, but
yeah, there definitely is. But I took some notes because I'm a professional podcaster.
There you go.
So starting back off with the beginning of what you were saying, one of the ways, and I don't know if this came from you or from somebody else that understands the way you look at things, is when you look at some of these big companies, Facebook, TikTok, like how are they able to market to you the types of products that you were talking about yesterday or that your friends were talking about yesterday, right? The way that they're able to accomplish that is by collecting the data, sifting through it themselves, and then putting what they think is the best option for you in front of you. Again, that's the same thing that you're able to do if you're marketing and tracking your numbers and your prospects correctly. You're weeding out the people who don't want your product, and you're niching down to the ones that need it. And this is the most efficient way that I found to be able to do it. The other thing, the way that I look at the niche marketing is it's like a machine, right? So I get the records every day and I put them into the different things, taking out the junk and seeing what's left, and then figure out how to contact them. And I think that is something that nobody talks about. Nobody speaks. They're just bulk blast, spend money to make money. And that doesn't work, especially for people starting out. And then the other piece that I'll say is that doing this type of strategy allows individual wholesalers or individual investors to compete and get to deals faster and better than some of these big, every market has their national level wholesalers who come in virtually wholesale and that kind of stuff. This gives you an unfair advantage if executed consistently and correctly. It gives you an unfair advantage against these big name guys that can just blast 40,000 mailers out all at once. So
100%. I mean, you can't, when you're dealing with the process, right? It's not what you do, it's how you do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so with like anything, if somebody's hitting, going back to what I mentioned about the 10,000 new records every month, the reason why coaches teach that is, number one, it's easy to teach, pull 10,000 records, skip them, call them, right? Number two, the biggest reason is because if you call through new data every month, your correct number ratio is always going to stay the same, right? And so if you recall through it a second time, your correct ratio, your number ratio goes down. But the problem with that is I call it the vitamin C of your business, right? All you're doing is you're using cash to give, injecting cash into your business, AKA new records, new skip tracing, calling through them. However, that only lasts so long before, for example, you have every record in your market, right? And now now you got to call back through them again, right? And so what happens to most businesses is after they get to this point where they have 150,000 records, you have the whole county or whatever, they've been in the business and maybe they even got like 20,000 a month because they have two different VAs and their coach says 10,000 per VA, right? And so what happens is now they have sometimes within 90 days to 6 months of having this business, they close some deals, but then boom, stops. Everything dries up and they're like, shit, everything stopped for me and I don't know what's going on. And the ability to recover from that is very difficult for most because now you have a learning curve to realize how to do things the right way. And so what they do instead is they go to another market and then they just repeat this cycle over and over and over rather than building a business of impact and consistency and something that's going to last a lifetime, right? I'm not in this business for tomorrow. I'm in it for 10 years from now, right? So most people, they have a monthly mindset when they pay taxes annually, right? And in their life, they have a 1-year mindset when hopefully you're going to last a decade, right? And so you got to fix that mindset to be able to understand the importance behind it. But if you're going to do that type of strategy, at minimum, if you want to have a somewhat competitive advantage against the other people that are doing that, track the results that are happening now. You don't need to use them now. You might just use them in 15 years from now. It's like if I had blood work before I got sick in 2021, I would have a baseline. If I knew what my testosterone was before then, I would know if my sickness right now is affecting my testosterone or if I just always had it low. But I don't have that, right? And so I just got to base off of what I know now, which is very difficult because you got to get a baseline and then it takes a lot longer to fix the problem, And so in your business, if you at least track that information, right? When you do come to the time where it's like, hey, I want to send direct mail, at least hey, I can send direct mail to the records that I didn't get phone numbers for instead, because I've probably already called through all the ones with phone numbers. And most of the time, people who are only doing cold calling aren't sending mail. And so I'm going to have that advantage where I'm only now competing against, these 3,000 records. And the person who's sending like 40,000 records of mail, they might be hitting these people, but their expenses are so much higher than mine. So I can actually do this. And if I send the same amount that they're sending, I'm actually sending it to a lot of really niche people. And so it's just one of those things, like, again, with deep understanding comes the ability to manipulate your business. And if you don't track it, then you never have the ability to make the decisions to begin with. You kind of are only making emotional decisions rather than educated ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I think it's a lot easier to start out doing it now. Well, it's easy for me to say after we've already established our business and we're doing this, but I believe that it's a lot easier to start out tracking things the right way than, like when I fully committed to coming over to REISift, I had to upload 250,000 records into the system. And that's a pain. But if we had been using REISift to track everything from the beginning, I think it's a lot easier. It's a lot harder when you are already booked down with all the not interested, all the problems that you have. Okay, Tyler. So now like some tactical questions, right? So I cold call and then don't get an answer, and I SMS, and then I direct mail and I get the return mail. I try to skip them again, and I can't get a hold of them. There's somebody who maybe is stacked on a couple of different lists. There's definitely some pain points that are visible that we have visibility on, but I can't find somebody. Maybe they passed away and it hasn't gone through probate yet. Maybe they just ghosted. What do we do now?
Yeah. Okay. So it's a prospect. I've already tried to call the person on file. I didn't get any good answers. Maybe every number is wrong or dead, or maybe some of them are just no answer. Right. The first thing I'm going to do here is make sure I send a direct mail piece to the mailing address. Right. If they're deceased, I'm going to look to see, maybe I'm not pulling probates. So I'm going to just check to see at the county if they are deceased. Right. And if they're not, showing that there's a probate filed, I'm then going to look to see maybe there's a death certificate. If I don't see any death certificates, I'm going to search the obituary, and try to see if maybe they pop up under obituary. And if they do, then I know like, okay, they passed away, but the county never, the hospital, maybe it might've been a hospital in another location. Maybe they passed away out of state. And so the local county doesn't have the death certificate. If they do have the death certificate as a local county, usually the properties will update under heirs of, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to look into this. I'm first always going to figure out, are they dead? And have I tried to reach out to them yet? And if I have, and I didn't reach them, next thing is, are they dead? If they're not dead, and even if they are dead, the next step is to gather phone numbers. Well, first of all, send the mail. Right. If they are a probate, I'm going to look who the PR is. I'm going to send mail to the PR right away. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to start digging into other family members. Right. I'm going to try to see, I'm going to search that person. If there was an obituary, I'm going to look at the obituary and see, it always says like survived by. And I'm going to start researching those names in the location and see if there's anybody I can find on Google or on Facebook. And these types of things I'm talking about now is what I would call deep prospecting. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to research as many of these family members as possible and gather all their phone numbers. And I'm going to add them to the record inside of SIFT. And I'm going to call through them. And I'm going to use a SIFT line Kanban board to kind of manage this flow. And then what I'm going to do is, if I don't reach anybody still, or let's say there was no probate and there was no heirs, my last source ditch effort on this is kind of twofold. First, door knocking the neighbors, right, is a big one, and trying to figure out, hey, do you know what's going on over here? They're a really powerful resource. Every street has the know-it-all, right? I have two of them on my street. One of them is just a know-it-all, and the other one is just, a guy who's networked, right? It's the guy who like will stop and just have a 50-minute conversation with you when you're trying to get out, versus the guy who, you call, to let them know that, hey, I'm leaving. There's the guy who you're leaving and they just know that you're leaving. You never told them, but they're watching you, and then there's the guy where you let them know, hey, I'm leaving. Do you mind watching over my house? There's usually two different types on the street. And so you got to figure out who that is, because they'll know the answers of what happened, what's going on. They might know Sister Sally and all that other kind of stuff, right? So door knocking is a big one. The second thing I'm going to do is a genealogist report. And so what this is a genealogist is somebody who specializes in basically finding family trees. And it is a certified thing, right? You have to go and do a certification, get registered by the state. Kind of think of it like someone who goes for a notary. It's the same kind of process, right? And so what they do is they do a background check on the person. They see, is there legitimately any heirs of this person? And if there is, which includes like a sister, second cousin type stuff, they'll figure that out. And then what they'll do is they'll get their document basically notarized saying, hey, officially, this is legal, binding, there's no other heirs. And now you take that and you can do things with it at the county. And for those that don't know, look this up yourself. There's something called the unclaimed funds at the county. This is a whole nother business. That if you learn to do what I just told you to do, there's actually a whole nother business you can create by going and finding the unclaimed funds at the county and just finding family members of the people who have unclaimed funds and then going to them and saying, hey, you have unclaimed funds that you can inherit. I'll help you receive it for a 10% fee. And so there's some counties that literally have millions sitting from a sale of someone who passed away. It went to tax auction. It sold for $3 million. And there was nobody there to receive it. And so it just sits at the county, and the county uses that money as they will. And then a family member comes up and is like, hey, that's my money. And then they receive it. And so what happens is you buy a property from the county, that money goes and sits in unclaimed funds. This is where the money goes from tax auctions. It's where it goes if a property goes to foreclosure and the bank receives, say it's sold for $150,000, the bank receives their $100,000, nobody claims the other 50, it goes and sits in unclaimed funds. This happens a ton because only about 30% of people who pass away file probate. 70% of properties never just sit because no family member knows they died. They never actually had any heirs. And so those ultimately end up going to foreclosure auction or tax auction, which is why some people can build businesses just off of bidding at tax auction and foreclosure auctions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, little rant, but there you go.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like you said, if I can't get a hold of them, that means that you probably can't get a hold of them. So whoever can get a hold of them first, it's like, fishing in a pond with nobody else around, right? Like if you're the only one that contacts them, you have no competition, and you know how to solve these problems. That's where you earn your fee. That's where you're bringing value to those family members who otherwise wouldn't have gotten any money. And that's really where we can solve the biggest problems and collect the biggest fee for that.
Yeah, I would say another analogy, speaking of ponds, is that it's a little bit more like, because everybody's marketing to that person, they just don't know they exist, right? And so it's more like you're in a pond and there's like 5 other fishermen right next to you, because that always happens. That is like you go out to fish and everybody gathers around you for some reason, right? But nobody else has a fish finder and you do, right? And so that gives you the competitive advantage to know where the fish are, whereas everybody else are kind of in the blind, right? So they're just throwing bait. And so what they resort to is throwing out chum, and so they're going to get the fish that, are hungry, but they're not going to get the mammoth that's sitting at the bottom that already ate, but he exists. Right. So you're going to spearfish. So you're going to go down and spearfish him.
Yeah, no, that's great. Okay, Tyler. So now, and this is something that is affecting our business because we have this process. We bring in somewhere between 25 and 50 niche records a day and push it through our process. And that results in a lot of no contacts and a lot of exhausted records. We run them through, but now I need to be able to prioritize which properties I should run into deep prospecting with, which ones I should just put out to pasture and let them know that they're dead. And then the question is, how much time should I be dedicating to this? Because it's a rabbit hole. If you track down this heir to this heir to this heir, oh, look, here's a criminal record. Oh, he was arrested in 1957 for this. And, all of that kind of stuff. How do you prioritize which one of those to go after and how much time to spend on it?
So this really depends on, what your resources are, right? Do you have a big team? Like I have some clients that, they have 25-person sales teams, and so, what they've done in this market is take off 5 of those people and dedicate them, and basically SIFT is like a department in their business. You know what I mean? It's like everything that happens in SIFT stays in SIFT. It's their sole CRM, it's the sole marketing strategy, everything else. But then they have this whole other thing that's just all the bulk stuff, and everything else. So there's a lot of ways to do it. And so it depends on resources, but the easiest way with somebody who doesn't have, and by resource, I mean, money, people, time. Those are the 3 main resources. And so if you don't have people, but you're doing deals, then the best thing to do is, again, send mail right away. And that's the first and foremost thing. Send mail right away. And call those individuals at the same time. And then focus on like deep prospecting, the return mail that you've already called that's exhausted, right? So that's like an easy way. So just create a parameter to say, hey, first of all, I'm getting, if I have like, let's say I have 20 new properties that come in and I only reach, let's say 50% of them, right? So I still have another 20. right? Out of that 20 or out of those records in general, if I sent mail to them, I get about a 2%, return mail, 2 to 5% return mail rate. All right. And so maybe I get 5 to 10, return mail pieces. I'm not really sure if that's the right math or not, but let's say it's 5. If it's 5, mail pieces that get returned, then those are the ones I'm going to focus on now. Right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a phase 1, a phase 2, and a phase 3. And these are essentially like again, what you say, how much time do I spend on each one? It's, hey, I'm going to go through phase 1 on all of them and then try to reach them, which would be like skip tracing a second location, sure. Manually researching, right? Phase 2 would be trying to find them on Facebook, right? Phase 3 would be maybe door knocking, right? So I kind of just determine what my allocation of time is, and then you choose what's phase 1, 2, or 3. We have some users that phase 1 is just going to door knock right away, right? But they have already a door knocking process in place. Sure. And so it's easy to say, hey, go door knock these first. All right. And go that route. Right. So, it really depends, but I would say like, if you've done 15 minutes of research and, you should probably move on to the next one, because you should have a process dialed in where, hey, I go gather here, I go gather here, I go gather here, 15 minutes of research, 5 minutes of calling, and then move on. I wouldn't spend any more than 30 minutes on a deep prospect before I'd press on. And after that, I just continue to send a mail. Mm-hmm. As they're not return mail, right? Sure. If they're return mail, right now, what's the next layer of this, right? I got a return mail. I see there's something going on here. It's really based off of my desire that I want that property, right? Let's just say it was one of my neighbors, right? And I already know none of our neighbors know what's going on, but I would really love to have the rental across the street from me. In fact, I did this on my own street on Massachusetts, right across from me. There was a house that's been sitting forever. I tried to call them, didn't reach anybody, so I had to do deep prospecting. And it turned out that the mom moved in with the brother down in your area, and or not the mom moved in with the brother, the mom moved in with her son down in your area, but like I spent a lot of time on that one because it was one that I really wanted, you know what I mean? And if I hadn't have reached him via the phone finally, I sent mail too, but he ended up answering on the phone. What I would have done is I would have hired the genealogist, and I would have spent the $150 to get the answer on that deep prospect, because it would have been worth it to know. But you can't go spending $150 on every single one, because now, granted, I say that, but there's some users that do that, right? Because they built a KPI around like, hey, for every 10, 150, every whatever, 10 times 150, like every $1,500. Like if I can get a contract, then obviously that's pretty good. Great. Yeah. And even if like you can spend up to $5,000 for a contract for a flipper, and that's fucking awesome, right? It's cheaper than the agent's commission, right? To buy it off the market. And so it really depends, man. I mean, at the end of the day, the catch-all if you can't find somebody, is you can pay a genealogist. Yeah. Right. They're going to find it. And if they don't find it, then you have the material that you need to buy the property anyway, so it's just, that's expensive, and that's why, but
Sure. Now, that's great information, and it can seem a little overwhelming, and that's why I like the way that you guys teach it, where you just take, okay, just work divorce records. If you just pulled divorce records once a day or once a week and did that with the 5 properties and run it all the way through the system while looking up the next ones the next day, everybody can do that. Once you have that process dialed in and systematic, then you can start adding more records and more niches and more stuff. One of the things I heard you talking about the other day, Tyler, and I hope you can share it with us, is for every X number of records, there is X number of value that's within those records. Can you run us through that real quick?
Yeah, this is super interesting, and this is one of the powerful things about our product is, we integrate with a lot of different platforms, right? And in what enables us to see as we continue to build out the platform and add more strategies, the more that people use us for the sales side and everything else, we can see trends, basically, business intelligence, right? And that's what it's all about. The whole reason SIFT is being built is to give the power of data at the fingertips of business owners, right? And right now it's really to give the competitive advantage to the real estate investor. And so what we found is there's some core KPIs that, to mention here. The first is that if you're niche sequential calling, for most people without doing any deep prospecting or skipping to 2 different locations, you're going to have, right around a 4.5 to 5% correct number ratio. What that means is, like JD said, if he has 30 people that he brings in a day, if he calls through all those phone numbers, those are going to be about 90 phone numbers. Okay. Which means out of that 90 phone numbers, 4 to 5% of them would be correct numbers. And if I were to real quick, try not to do too much math in your ears, but if I do 90 times 0.05, that's basically 5 homeowners. So out of the 30, he's going to reach 5 divided by 30. He's going to reach basically 17% of those homeowners. Okay. Now that means he's not going to reach, right, 83% of those homeowners. And that 83% is where nobody else is reaching as well, most likely. And that's where the deals come in. However, okay, here's our next KPI. So remember, I'm going to recap really fast. 7% or between 4.5 to 5% of numbers dialed is going to be a correct number. For bulk dialing, it's like 2.5%, 3%. You can get it higher, but it's difficult. Okay. Now, out of those numbers gathered, right? So in JD's case, out of the 30 prospects, he's going to get about 5 of them on the phones, 5 correct numbers. That's 5 correct homeowners. Only between 7 and 9% of those are going to be a lead. Okay. Speaking of leads, I have one calling. Let's see if they're calling direct mail right now or not. If it's not direct mail, then I'm not going to care about it. Calling on standby. Tyler is calling my personal number. We're going to ignore it. All right. So basically, 7 to 9% of those are going to be leads. Okay. So what that means is essentially, for every, 5 correct numbers, you might get a lead in that. You might get a lead in 5 correct numbers, right? Really, you want, there's going to be an average here of how many correct numbers you get a lead. It might be 10 to 1, but let's just say you get that, right? Out of the other 4, let's say one of those 5 were a lead. The other 4 means that they're not. Okay. There's not interested. It's typically, like I said, it's like a 93% not interested rate. And this is where a lot of people fuck up, is they throw those away. Okay. They throw them away and they never do anything with them. So that's one component of this. The other component of this is, remember I said you dialed 90 phone numbers and it was 30 prospects. You received 5% correct numbers. Okay. However, you also probably had, out of those 30 homeowners, at least another 5 of them or so were fully exhausted, right? Meaning that every one of them was dead or wrong. It's about, for every 100 dials, it's between 3 and 7 are fully exhausted, meaning every number was bad or wrong. Okay. So if you dialed 90, it's probably around 5 or something like that, somewhere between that 3 and 7 mark. Okay. And so the metric that we found is that it's like $32,240, I think is what it is. And that's based off of someone's average deal size being $12,000. Okay. If you're a flipper, this number is way bigger, right? But if you're just a wholesaler, traditional, $12,000 per wholesale, what we found is that $32,240 is lost per 1,300 dials. So if you have a VA and they're dialing 10,000 records a month, 1,300 dials a day or whatever, right? Every day, basically, that a VA dials, and you're not tracking what I'm talking about tracking, exhausteds, not interesteds, the phone numbers, the whole gamut, you're losing opportunity cost of $32,000 a day. And why is that? And most people are like, Tyler, there's no fucking way. Like, there's 1,300 dials, $32,000. Well, here's the thing. For every exhausted record, if you're doing the job of like anything, to give Well, let me cover that afterwards. But for every not interested, 2.5% of them will convert, right? And so if you have a not interested, say you have 100 not interested, right? There's 2 deals there over a course of around 90-day period. 2 of those 100 not interested will convert to a deal.
Yep.
Right? You'll go under contract every 90 days, right? And so that's where this comes from. Now the question is, are you gonna? It doesn't mean you're gonna close that $32,000, right? But if you're not doing the activities that are needed to capitalize on it, then you'll never have the opportunity. That's why it's called opportunity costs, right? Everybody has the opportunity to lose weight, right? But not everybody does it, right? Not everybody goes on runs. Not everybody goes on walks. Not everybody gets rid of the sugar, right? Everybody has the opportunity to improve their business. Not everybody does it because it's too difficult. It's too hard. I don't want to learn it, right? I'm not the integrator. Whatever excuse they want to make themselves, right? Everybody has the opportunity, and this lack of this creation of opportunity is why you and I can be in the same market, because you don't have all the time, assets, and resources, and neither do I, to fill all the gaps right now at this very moment, right? And so it creates opportunity because the only difference between a lead today versus 90 days ago is 90 days ago is not interested, right? Unless it was became a lead 6 months ago and I'm following up with it. But what's interesting about this, and people argue with me about this, like, no, Tyler, not interested don't become leads. I'm like, really? How many of your leads become not interested?
Yeah.
How many times have you called a lead like, I'm no longer interested in selling? Most people don't even track that from a lead management metric. But what do? It was a lead, so they continue to follow up. Well, what about the not interested? The not interested will convert to a lead. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
And so this is where the opportunity cost comes in. For every $1,300, it's about $32,240 in opportunity cost. If you're a flipper, you got to look at your average deal size. If your average deal size right now is $37,000, then that number just went up by 3, right? And so here's the thing though, is and this is where it gets kind of mind fucking a little bit. I don't know if you're gonna have to bleep my curses or not.
No, we'll be all right.
We're not. Okay, fantastic. Is on average, it takes between 50 and 75 leads on bulk dialing specifically to get a conversion, right, to a contract. So what this means is if one VA dials $1,300, remember our numbers, right? At 1,300 dials, 7%, 5%, let's say they're really good, and 5% of them become a lead. So 1,300 dials times 5% is 65 correct numbers, and only 7% of those on the high end are going to be a lead. That would be 4 leads. Okay, 5 leads on the high end, right? That's it. That's like a really good operation. That's a good VA, and that would only be calling fresh data. If they're calling that same 1,300 numbers later, it's not going to be like that. So 4 leads a day. Let's assume every day they have 1,300 new records without fail. 4 times 25 is 100 leads. Okay. If it's a 50% or 50-to-1 ratio, which again, on bulk dialing, that's like amazing. Okay. Most likely right now in this market, it's like a 75-to-1. So that's 2 contracts a month. Okay. Now, over the course in time to generate these 2 contracts, most big wholesaling operations that would be doing and having these numbers, in fact, if it's a big operation, they're not going to have these good of numbers. They're just going to, but nevertheless, let's say they have these numbers, 2 contracts per 1 VA. That would mean that for the period in time, for that last 25 days, they would have had 32,240 times 25. Yeah. So it would have had $806,000 in opportunity cost lost by not doing the activity. They would have had hundreds of correct numbers that they lost, right? That they're going to now re-spend trying to market to that person through SMS or something else. And the crazy thing about it is that they probably have like a 50% close ratio, right? And so out of that, 2 deals, probably only one of them are actually going to go on a contract and close out a title company, right? And so basically what you're saying is that if your average deal size is $12,000, for every $12,000, even let's be friendly again and say it's $24,000, they wholesaled both of those successfully. For every $24,000 they make, they're losing opportunity on $802,000 of it because they don't track it. That $802,000, that number is what is the difference between a business lasting 10 years versus 2 years versus 1 year. It's the difference between them resetting every single month their whole marketing campaigns and being a month by month company versus being an annualized company, right? And it's so crazy to me because people just don't get it. They don't get that if you just track it and do this one thing, and even once a quarter, call through the not interested, send mail to the exhausted owners, and just build the KPI. If you just do that, like SIFT is $2,700 a year for the business plan. It's pennies compared to what you would be able to accomplish and regain into your business. But instead, they go out and they try to find like a go high level platform with automatic AI salespeople, as if that's going to solve their problems. Blows my mind.
So speaking about that, Tyler, now, you know, I know we're running tight on time, but what do you say to people that say something along the lines of, well, I'm not going to pay $2,700 for a list stacker?
You're just trying to get on my nerves, aren't you? Yeah, no, a fair question, right? I would say, well, there's probably a few choice words I would say, but I've been working on my temper lately. I would let them know that, you know, show me a list stacker, right? That, that's only a list stacker that integrates with call platforms, right? Show me a list stacker that has a Kanban board. Show me a CRM that you can upload prospects to. It doesn't exist, right? There's no other platform out there where you have your prospects and your leads and your offers and your calling results all in one location.
And your direct mail.
And your direct mail. Thank you. All right. And your direct mail all in one location. And what they do instead is they hyper focus on like the things that they want and not what they need, right? They like, well, you don't have automatic drip follow-up. I'm like, yeah, that's because you don't freaking need it. You know how many people are getting banned on automatic drip follow-up right now in the SMS world? I knew that it was going to happen, right? Like I can foresee this shit coming. And instead of focusing on selling the things like, oh, guess what? We have automatic drip follow-up, you know, and getting a bunch of users, right? I instead focused on what are the things that are actually needed for a business to last forever, right? What are the things we need to teach people? Because our mission at REISift is not, you know, to be $100 million company. That'd be super amazing, right? But our mission is that all real estate companies have sales and marketing clarity. Follow-up Boss just sold for $500 million to Zillow.
If you sell REISift to Zillow, dude, I'm going to be so upset.
Yeah. $500 million. That's crazy. Insane. $500 million for real estate agents that don't even know how to generate their own leads. Right. And it's ridiculous. And so, you know, that's what I would say to that, man. I'd have a conversation. I'd ask them, well, are you cold calling? What are you doing with your wrong numbers? Nothing. Okay. How much are you spending on wrong numbers? Oh, you don't know that answer? How much, what's your correct number percentage? Right. REISift isn't just a platform, right? It's a place where it's a community of like-minded individuals that are looking to scale and grow their businesses in a healthy way. And we get some people that message like, well, Tyler, I've been doing niche sequential marketing for a year now and I haven't got any deals.
How many have you done? Show me your numbers.
Yeah. How many records did you call? Did you get correct numbers? What are your KPIs? Because SIFT isn't just going to, like niche sequential marketing, and miraculously make you make any deals, because it's not what you do, it's how you do it, right? If you gathered correct numbers and you didn't spend money recalling wrong numbers or the dead numbers, then guess what? I've done my job. You've used my platform. It annoys me when the people also have a different CRM. Like they'll have a different CRM they're using. Like, we haven't closed any deals. I'm like, well, I can't help you because I don't know what your follow-up. Like you might have generated correct numbers. You might have generated leads. You might just suck at following up with them. Oh, because, you said you're there on drip follow-up. Maybe that's your problem. Instead, you're coming over to me thinking it's my problem when it's not my platform, right? It's not my process, because my process, you can't dispute it. Everybody's call, it's your call, text, voicemail. It's what you're doing in bulk. If you do it at 50 records at a time or 10,000 records at a time, the only difference is volume, right? And so I'm not saying dial niche sequentially, 10,000 records at a time. Do that in a bulk dial. People think I don't like bulk dialing. I don't like when people just don't track their bulk dialing.
Sure.
SIFT was originally built for bulk dialing. The only reason that we started educating anything else is because I could see that it was going to be needed in the market for people to truly understand how to get a hold of the people that nobody else is getting a hold of. And so I started educating that. And then all of a sudden, everyone thinks that, that's the only thing the platform is for. Until now, we have companies that are doing, $15 million a year using REISift to manage their bulk marketing so that they can figure out out of all that bulk marketing they're doing, where is all those exhausted records? So they can just send those direct mail. They're trying to gain more from the money that they're spending because they don't have as much net profits no more.
Sure. And you can go out and spend all kinds of money. And you know, I'm not going to talk bad about any of the super secret 40/60 data, whatever. But you can go out and spend extra money to get data where people are using the same kind of thing to come up with this information and just market to them the first time. But nobody is going to have as good a data as you if you're using this system consistent and processed. It just, your data is going to, and that's another reason why we can work in the same market. It's because the leads that I'm calling are not necessarily the same ones as you, and I'm tracking my individual stuff, and just like you are. And so a lead that might not even pop up on your list is going to be in my system, and I'm going to know that that's a lead, and I'm going to go and attack that because that's the data set that I've built inside. Now, we could talk about how you could just log into my account and see my data that way, but
yeah, technically I could. And, you know, we have strategy calls where I've seen your data and stuff like that. And, you know, Peyton, you know, he's a real estate user that you know, and or an REISift user, you know, and you know, he's actively marketing in this market as well. And you know, he just got a deal that I didn't get and it was in my system. The difference was that his VA happened to call that record before I called it. And so many people ask me like, well, if everybody's doing first to market, like, and because REISift is like a mastermind at the same time, like, you know, most masterminds, they like restrict, you know, the person by market, only 1 to 2 people per market. Like, no, what I say is if you got JD and you got Tyler and you got Peyton all in the same market, like one of us, I bought deals from Peyton, and
I've sold deals to Peyton.
Yeah. So it's like, it doesn't really matter who gets it first or last, because at the end of the day, that's even better, because if we can keep the ecosystem in the SIFT community at all, look at the sub 2 community. Sure. How many of those people do deals together?
All of them.
It's not all of them. Right. And so it's a collaboration, not competition thing. And it's more about, if anybody's going to get these deals, it's going to be a fucking ninja. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day. And so, you know, the thing, it's just crazy to me though, because like I've gotten deals. I have 2 deals under contract right now that, you know, Payne didn't get. And it just so happened that I called him first, you know, or one of them came in from my website because I'm doing SEO and he doesn't have that fully set up yet, I don't think. So, you know, little things like that, man. There's obviously ways that you can still have the competitive edge. But again, most people don't have the resources and time to actually hit everything 100%. You would have to be, the largest wholesaling business in the US is like 50 salespeople. Even they could not handle all of Miami by themselves.
Sure.
That's where they're located, right? And if you wanted to scale your company, you could just, you know, a lot of people, they just skim the surface of everything. And you could do that too. You could scale niche, dialing, probates, and everything else, and just scrape the surface across all of Florida, you know, and do a bunch of deals. You're leaving stuff on the table. Yes, you're losing opportunity costs, but at least you're tracking it. And you could always do a blanket marketing strategy like direct mail against those people to try to bring in an inbound easy sale. A lot of things you can do, man. It's just so many opportunities. People just need to, at minimum, if I were to give advice for someone to do just these 3 things, store your data in a centralized location. When you skip trace it, the stuff that you don't get phone numbers back for, send it mail, right? And then anything that you call, track the wrong numbers and dead numbers. And if they become fully exhausted, send those mail as well. And just do that. Do that only. And just, that's a really easy thing to do. It actually improves your process. It speeds up your marketing strategy. And if you just only do that, you'll be, you know, at least 50% better than any other operation, if not more.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're still not getting deals, then let's have a conversation and we can talk about why you can never say the wrong thing to the right person. You can't never say the right thing to the wrong person, and sales process and stuff. Tyler, man, there's so much information packed into this podcast. I really appreciate you coming in and sharing that information with me. It's done tremendous things for our business, but also sharing it with our audience. If our listeners want to find out more about you, obviously, if they're gonna want to sign up for REISift after this, they'll use my affiliate link. But I'll put that in the show notes. Where can we send them to find out more about you, more about what you're doing in REISift and your masterminds and all of the stuff you're doing? Where should we direct them?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you guys have any questions or whatever, definitely, if you want to use SIFT, definitely use, JD's resources. He'll put, like I said, he'll put the link in the description if you want to learn that. When you do that, you're going to enter into the SIFT ecosystem. You're going to see everything that's going on. So that's first and foremost the thing that I would recommend. If you want to like have if you're not quite sure yet, if SIFT is right for you, you don't fully understand everything that I covered in this. You can go to reisift.io/clarity, watch the webinar on there, and then uses, JD's link to sign up, right? Because JD does, send people our way, but nobody ever clicks the links for people. And it really is, it's not a thing about selling. It's a thing about like giving back to that person who just gave you the thing that's going to save your business, right? And I'll gladly pay anybody that shares it. SIFT has grown where we've grown now from people that share what we do by users only. Like users just share what it is that we do. And that's how we've grown to date. And it's been the best way to grow because the community is so solid, so close to each other and so niche. And so other than that, Tyler Austin Original is my Instagram. And I prefer voice messages. Other than that, hop in the REISift Mastermind community on Facebook, say hi, and join. If you do that, once you do that, you'll get all of our emails and we'll stay on top of you,
all the time. Cause you're great at follow-up.
Yeah. I'm great at follow-up,
it translates across many different businesses.
Yep.
Awesome.
100%.
Tyler, again, man, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to come and chat with me today.
100%. Thanks for the invite, man. It was good, rocking with you, jamming with you on the Real Estate Jam podcast, man.
Awesome, man. We'll see you later.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Jam. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information, check out our website, therealestatejam.com, or find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The Real Estate Jam. If you have any questions, feel free to drop us an email at therealestatejam@gmail.com. See you next episode.